All right, welcome back to another week of Three and Out. I am your host, Ryan Kieran. With me this week are Ryan Spags and Keegan Stiefel. How are we doing tonight, fellas?
Doing well, doing well. If you hear any squeaky toys or anything in the background, it's my 8-week-old puppy. So I apologize for that, but I'm doing well. Good
Tell
week.
the tell the chat the puppy's name.
Yeah, I mean, you guys could probably guess after that showing on Sunday, we went with Mac Bones. It's really Mac, but we call him Mac Bones.
Very solid. Keegan, how we doing tonight, pal?
I'm good. I'm freezing. I don't know. Like my apartment building is the coldest building on the planet right now, so I'm very cold. So, but
Did you
we'll get
did you
over it.
change the sign behind you for Monday night, or is it the same thing? Because you got to show
No,
people.
I'm keeping it. Give Nikhil 3 targets per game. That's
Absolutely.
the goal this week.
There we go.
Until he
And-
gets 3 targets, it's not changing.
And you are representing the Fenway Sports Group with your hat here.
Correct. Absolutely. Even though I don't like John Henry, this is a great logo. I think they should bring it back.
That's an elite hat in general. Spags, we already got some trash talk in here. Mac Bones.
You
outscored
probably
Spags in
will.
trivia.
I got the number one seed here too.
You're getting a
terrible.
little past the 1 seed right now, actually. But
Got it,
Me
okay.
too.
yeah, but
Pat
I
keeps
think
destroying me.
I
I
think
don't know what
Spags
the deal is.
gets a little bit too much hate just because he's currently in last place. He had a good showing against Brian. Had a couple hockey questions he could have grabbed that would have given him.
Dude,
the
I
lead.
know. I choked. Easy ones too.
Let's get into it. First down recap. Best game of the season on Sunday. Patriots blew out the Browns, gave up a touchdown first drive, didn't 45 unanswered points for the rest of the game, 45-7 win. Mac Jones, 19 to 23, 198 yards. His first career 3-touchdown game, no interceptions, only took 2 sacks for 15 yards. Very impressive against the great pass rush that the Browns have. 142.1 passer rating. Ramondre Stevenson had 115 total yards, 114 total yards. First career 100-yard game as a rusher and 2 touchdowns. We're gonna have fun. We're gonna laugh at the Browns here, but there's really not too much to talk about in this game, just because it was for the third straight week or second straight week. Really, it was just such domination. 3 out of the past 4.
Yeah. I thought the opening drive. We talked about it Monday. The opening drive, they really, I don't know what Stefanski was doing. He got away from the run. It looked like, and I know they got behind, but it really wasn't out of reach until I want to say 5 minutes left in the half. Obviously Duggar's pick, you go up 21-7, then they go 3 and out, and the Patriots come back down and score again. They got away from the run. I thought that opening drive, the Patriots got dominated up front. I think Cleveland's got a pretty good offensive line. I think, top 5 in the league. You saw those contracts they gave out last week. And
to be fair, they didn't have their starting center, but
yeah, that's true. And the other thing too, like I thought it was just a perfect game. Like Josh McDaniels was in his bag from play one. Like from the get-go, I thought you really knew how good this offense was going to be that day when they went, what was it, like 3 for 3 on third down to start the game on that opening drive. That's when it was like, okay, they can move the chains versus these guys. And I was nervous versus that front. Obviously, on Onwenu was out and they had Brown in. I don't know. Everyone jumped off a bridge. I know Onwenu really only played, I think he played 29 snaps, but I think it was for Trent Brown's first game back really this season. He played 7 snaps week 1. He was dominant. Like that offensive line, if they're not number 1 in football, they're number 2, especially when you have Michael Onwenu like subbing in and out of packages and playing like wherever he wants on the line. That's a pretty good. You got a pretty good line. So yeah, like you said, that game was out of reach. I want to say right when the second quarter started. Duggar's pick really changed the whole perplexion of the game, and I just thought that was Mac Jones' best game as a pro. We haven't seen a half like that. I was talking in the press box with someone. I was like, I haven't seen a half like that since literally week 2 versus Miami when they had Antonio Brown. Like that was the most dominating half on both sides of the ball that we've seen in 2.5 years. So good to see. Hopefully they can build on it.
His touchdown to Bourne was the best throw I've seen him make in his career, and he has like 2 other throws in this game that you could make an argument.
I was going to say that was impressive because he had like a 3-inch window to put that ball, but that throw to Henry on the far hash
What gives me the edge? What gives the edge to Bourne's for me is he felt comfortable putting it into that window. When he's on the sidelines and it's going to be completed or it's going to fall out of bounds, he's comfortable taking those shots. He hasn't been super comfortable taking the deep shots up the middle. Especially when he has to put some mustard on it like that. That is the encouraging thing that you want to see. If he's going to grow from, clearly he's going to be a good starter in this league. If he's going to grow into like a very good to elite one, those are the type of throws that you want to see him comfortable making. and he did it. He did both there.
And one more thing before you go, Keegan, too. I thought the first drive, maybe I wouldn't say erratic's the right word, but you know how much pressure he's been under this year. He's pressured, like, coming into the game, I think it was like 32% of dropbacks, which if you're a pocket passer, it's a recipe for disaster and you're going to take some hits. I think it took him like a drive or two to really realize, like, wow, I have time. And you see, if you can give him a half a second more on his dropbacks, what he had on Sunday, he can make any throw on the field. Like, you say what you want about the arm strength, the accuracy and the touch he puts on his balls are just, he can do it.
Yeah. And Keegan, I want to talk about the defense for a minute. So what's interesting to me this season is, for as dominant as the defense has been, they haven't been very good in scripted drive situations, which is, start of the first quarter, start of the third quarter, especially the first quarter. It feels like every week we're seeing this where even if they don't score, they come over, they get moved on a little bit early in the game. And then the script ends and they make adjustments and they win, which is great. I'm a little, first of all, and we also see, Twitter ends up freaking out every single week, like, oh God, we have bad defense today. And then they shut it down for the rest of the game. But does that concern you at all moving forward when you're playing teams that maybe you don't have that margin of error against, where it seems like consistently week in and week out, those scripted drives have been favoring the offense?
Yeah, so I go back to earlier in the season when we talked about, like, the idea behind attacking an offense versus sitting back and catching everything they do and keeping it in front of you. Like, that's something we've seen for a long time, where they'll give you yards, but they'll keep you to field goals, stuff like that. And Matt Judon said it, I think 2 weeks ago, where he was like, yeah, we kind of just figured out that if we attack instead of letting other people attack us, then we're going to be all right. But that's not what they're doing early in games. They're kind of feeling, it's a feeling out process, right? They're letting everything happen and then they're going to react to it. And that's when, like, the attacking and their substitutions get a little bit crisper, where they have the right guys on the field. You've seen a lot. I mean, Sunday they started Barmore, Guy, and Godshaw on the defensive line. For the rest of the game, from Series 2 on, they didn't have those three guys on the field together. Mm-hmm. So it's stuff like that where they need to figure out their substitutions. They need to figure out the packages that they're going to have on the field to match up with these other teams, and then they're going to be all right. In terms of being worried about it, no, because I think they're so good at reacting to those things that they can overcome that. Say they let up a touchdown in the first drive, they can overcome it.
Right. I think the biggest thing too, and why that Titans game, obviously they're the number one seed, right? They're rolling right now. I think the biggest thing about that game that I'm interested to see is we've really yet to see a team in a deep on both sides of the ball, right? Like, take away the Patriots' best, like, on offense, Hunter Henry is running, and I know that's what he was paid for. He's unbelievable in the red zone. He's a mismatch. You really have nobody that you can match up with him. He's going to get open. But we really haven't seen a defense be able to kind of take that away from the Patriots offense, because he's had 7 touchdowns in 7 games. That's really, this streak has started really when Hunter Henry got going, especially in the red zone. And then on the defensive side of the ball, what are they going to do if like Judon is taken out of the game? Like, we haven't seen a coach really take a Patriots and a Bill Belichick-like approach and say, okay, this is what you do really well on offense and defense. Let me take that away from you and try to beat me in a different way. That's why I think that Titans matchup will be so interesting, because Vrabel knows Belichick so well that, they might have to find different ways to score points and get pressure on the quarterback.
And first of all, also shout out Jacoby Myers' first career touchdown. I think now, after the bit became he was never scoring, I think he just needs to score a touchdown a week for, like, the rest of his life.
Jerry Rice and Jacoby Myers,
exactly.
1 and 2.
So my biggest takeaway with this defense, and I mostly wanted to just note the struggles they've had against scripted drives, and kind of put it out there that if you're someone who has been, our good pal, reactive Pat Lane, every time they come down and score on the first drive, he's like, and then it's always fine.
Got to get a stop. I don't know how many times he said that.
Yeah, got to get a stop. Stop would be huge here. This defense, non-elite quarterbacks aren't beating this defense. As long as the offense can put like 17 to 20 points on the board, if you don't have an elite quarterback, you're not beating this defense. It's just like Baker Mayfield is the epitome of a non-elite quarterback, and he was been playing injured and he got hurt today in that game. But You aren't. What would be the line? Who's the worst quarterback that you think could lead a win against this defense?
Tannehill.
Tannehill.
Yeah, I would, and it's ironic they're playing tomorrow. I'd say Matt Ryan too, just because of his experience. I don't, like that type of quarterback, right? Like kind of fringe of being quote unquote elite, but Tannehill's good, like hashtag good, like statistically, but
yeah, but I think it's like
Tannehill's like a back end top 10 quarterback in my opinion.
Yeah,
I think you need to be a top 10 quarterback because there's a difference between beating this defense and beating the team, right? Because if the offense goes out and scores 10 points, then you can beat them.
Exactly.
Not on your best day.
We've had games like that earlier this season. The specifics are blank. The Miami game and New Orleans, where they shut down Miami for they scored a touchdown in the opening drive, and then they scored I think out of the second half, and then they scored on their last drive. And the talk was, you need to stop them in the last drive, even though they gave the offense 50 chances throughout the course of the game.
And I forget who said it too. Was like. And I know Brady came here and the conditions weren't great, but Mac Jones had no problem throwing the ball either.
Right.
Like I think it might have been Orlovsky. Like the only quarterback that's played really well versus defense was Dak Prescott, and he's arguably an MVP candidate. So this defense is, for as much heat they took early on, they've turned it around.
Yep. Absolutely. We'll end the Browns talk there. We'll move on to Thursday night. The Patriots are taking on the Falcons tomorrow night, 8:20 p.m. Fox and NFL Network. The Falcons are a weird team. So they lost to Dallas 43-3 on Sunday. So the optics here, coming off a 45-7 win and a 43-3 loss, are not great. They have a negative 85 point differential, even though they are 4-5, which is just absurd. Like negative 85. I'm gonna pull it up on the side here.
Didn't they lose last week like 45-3? So I'm sure that didn't help. But...
and so in their losses, they give up points. They lost 32-6 to Philly, 48-25 to Tampa, 34-30 to Washington. 19-13 to Carolina when Sam Darnold the week before, Sam Darnold played the Patriots, and then 43-3 to Dallas. And they've only beaten the Giants, the Jets, the Dolphins, and the Saints with the Trevor Siemian Saints. So they're not a good team. This isn't a team that should give the Patriots any trouble tomorrow night. And yet I'm nervous. I don't feel good about going down to Atlanta on Thursday night game. Arthur Smith has done a solid job. That roster is terrible. And he's, Cordero Patterson's having a career year. He's questionable for the game. Kyle Pitts is bucking the rookie tight end like black hole. And
we were so right.
Yeah.
We were so
incredibly
right. Shout out to us.
Yeah.
Hard to be wrong with that pick.
Right.
Yeah, but take the credits back.
I was going to say, to be fair, in fact, if we're going to talk that, we had him falling like out of the top 10 in multiple mock drafts somehow. And we would always question how it even happened. But so I'm gonna tee up the clickbait question here for you guys. Is this a trap game? Because I'll spoiler it, I'm not picking them to lose, but I'm nervous about this game.
If there was a trap game, I would have thought it would have been Carolina, just because I think defensively they could give you some problems. But with how well this team's playing and just kind of the role and like swagger they're playing on, I guess any game theoretically that you're, a touchdown favorite in, and, you got to play on a short week and go on the road, like can be considered a trap game. But I just think on both sides of the ball, even special teams too, like they're so much better, especially with Patterson banged up. Patriots are getting healthy, right? I know they lost Uche today, but looks like Damian Harris will play. Gunnar Olszewski.
Winovich is back.
Winovich, yeah. So you expect Winovich to just kind of come in and play in that sub package role that Uche has been in. I wouldn't say it's a trap game. I think they'll handle this team pretty efficiently.
So let me segue into the injury report here. So for Atlanta, Darren Bates, their linebacker, is out with a groin injury. Hayden Hurst is out with an ankle injury. Their backup tight end, and Kendall Sheffield, the corner, is out with a hamstring injury. Safety Jalen Hawkins and Cordero Patterson, as previously mentioned, are questionable. For the Patriots, Jake Bailey with a knee injury, Juwan Bentley with a rib injury, Brandon Bolden with a hip, Trent Brown with a calf, Kyle Duggar with an ankle, Nick Folk with the same knee injury that he's had all year, N'Keal Harry with a knee injury, Dante Hightower with an ankle, Shaq Mason with an ab injury, Jalen Mills with a forearm, Jonnu Smith with a shoulder, Kyle Van Noy with a groin, and Dietrich Wise with a non-COVID illness are all questionable. And then, as you mentioned, Josh Uche just went to IR. Chase Winovich came back. Damian Harris, Gunnar Olszewski cleared. Among that list of questionables, you would think like Jonnu, Kyle Van Noy, maybe Dante Hightower would be the ones that stand out to you. They were all of these guys were limited at practice, by the way. No one didn't practice. Yes, thank you, Dark Buko. Obviously, there's no Calvin Ridley either, who is dealing with some mental health stuff. This has kind of been the Patriots injury report for a few weeks now, where it's like 50 names and they all play. Johnny obviously didn't play. Kyle Van Noy didn't play last week.
2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago. Yeah, he was back last week. So you look at the illness for Dietrich Wise. Maybe Jonnu Smith's not quite ready yet, but you hope that everyone else would be.
Jonnu traveled, so I would assume he plays.
Right.
One thing too that I don't know how much they'll take into effect, like guys like Hightower, even Van Noy. I wouldn't necessarily say McCourty just because his longevity's been so great, but I wonder how they, on those older guys that have a lot of miles on them that have played a lot of football in their career, like do they try to, get them on, maybe not play as many snaps? Yeah, like these. I know you get 10 days off after, so you can kind of look at it that way too. But I wonder. I mean, how much they play as opposed to how they would on a regular week, if that makes sense.
Yep. And Keegan, we'll kind of wrap up here again. The Falcons stink, but if this is going to win, it's going to be a bad upset, right? Like this is going to be a good feeling. What's the path for the Falcons here? What would, if you're trying to be negative and concerned here, what are you hyping up for the Falcons here?
So I'm going to start by saying I don't believe in trap games. I don't think that's a thing.
In the NFL, I agree.
In the NFL, like college, Alabama or Texas A&M can get caught in a trap. I don't think the New England Patriots getting caught in a trap. If Atlanta's going to win this game, first of all, you have to hope that Cordero Patterson plays, because if he doesn't play, I don't think they have a shot.
They have two offensive players.
Exactly. They have Pitts
and Matt Ryan's good. Matt Ryan's having a great year.
And Mike Davis is a fine running back, but like he's not going to beat you, right? No. So hope Cordero Patterson's there, and then really hope that you can score a few points and that your defense steps up big, because I don't think there's any chance that they score more than 20 points, like top line 20 points. That's the most I think they can get on this defense. And then you just got to hope, like, they've got some talented players. They've got Grady Jarrett, who's one of the most underrated players in football. He's so good. Deion Jones is like a solid linebacker. AJ Terrell has been one of the best corners in football this year. He hasn't let up more than 30 yards in a game, I think, in coverage. So like they've got some studs, and I guess their only hope is to hope it avalanches on the Patriots and they can make a couple football plays and then get up big and play from there. But other than that, I don't think it's happening.
And just to kind of talk on trap games a little bit, in the NFL, the margin between the best teams in the league and the worst is so thin. Like Buffalo and Jacksonville, if you're putting percentage of total talent, it's like a 2% difference, really. That makes all the difference in the NFL. So if you are at your best and you have a bad team who happens to play a good game, which defensively the Jaguars did, like that can happen to anyone, even if you're not losing focus. Sometimes you're just a little off.
I explained this to a buddy of mine the other day. It's the same exact thing you just said, but like the best team in the NFL and the worst team in the NFL is just Ohio State versus Purdue, where like it can happen, right? Purdue beats Ohio State every like 3 years. It's just it's what happens. It's not Alabama versus UMass. That's like it's not. You have
Florida versus Samford last week, where the first half is terrible for Florida, and you're like, all right, yeah, they're going through a tough season. They probably might mentally not prepared for this game a little bit. They're 18-year-old college kids.
They're children.
That doesn't happen in the NFL. Bad teams beat good teams because bad teams still have a full roster of NFL caliber players.
And also Buffalo, like if you can't run the ball, then you're not going to win. Like if you can't run the ball at all, if you're throwing the ball 60 times a game, you're probably not going to win. You know what I'm saying? Like I think that had a lot to do with it. It wasn't just a fluke.
All right, so let's we'll move on here. We'll get into second down. I only have 2 segments planned for the night, so we're gonna turn this question that we got a little bit ago into a de facto third segment here. So Matado01 asks, what's your guys' thoughts on Bentley with Hightower and Bentley's contract up after this year? I feel like we should move on from Hightower and stick with Bentley. Bentley's quietly been one of the best players on defense. I'll start off by saying Bentley absolutely has quietly had, or not even quietly, I think he's getting plenty of love, but he's having a great year. I also want to say that Hightower has been playing really well lately after a bit of a slow start, like 6 weeks even to the season. I think the past month or this winning streak, he's been playing great ball. Spags, what's your thought here? I'll keep the question on the screen. What's your thoughts here on if you had to pick between one, can you sign both? Is it worth signing one And what would you do here?
See, I think Hightower, depending on how this year goes, I don't know if he even comes back next year. Like, played a lot of football, he opted out last year.
Retirement's
I think
an option.
he's like, I'm not in the camp of that he's like been bad. I just think his level of play has been so elite and so high for so long that that's kind of been the bar set for him. And he's definitely lost a step, but I still think, like, in terms of football and how well he plays against the run and how physical he is, he's still an important piece of this defense. I think you got to keep Jawan Bentley around. That's a guy who wore the green dot in week 3 in Detroit, the game he ultimately got hurt and they lost him for the year. His leadership, his ability to play in the middle, play sort of that Hightower role, physical, downhill, run stuffing linebacker. I think last year he took a lot of heat, but I think they just didn't have the pieces around him, and he was, voted a team captain, and everybody expected this big jump. But I think with Hightower back this year, he's blossomed, he's matured into that role. I think he's definitely ready to take on that role. So I guess if you had to pick between the two, it's Bentley, simply because he's a younger player, and I think, I wouldn't say cheaper, but I think you can get him on a more team-friendly contract for the long term. But I'd be surprised if Hightower is still playing next year. I don't know his age, but he's definitely north of 30. He played a lot of football here. And Bentley's obviously the younger player who I think can fill that role.
Keegan, where do you land on this?
I would agree, if you have to pick one player for next year or the future, it's Bentley. But I'm not in the camp that, like, you need to keep one of those players. I think the kind of linebacker that they are at this point in Hightower's career and just who Bentley is, that's not an irreplaceable position. You can get 90% of Jawan Bentley for fairly cheap. Like, if he cashes in somewhere and someone wants to give him a lot of money, like a Miami, who that's what they do. They give former Patriot role players like star money.
Right.
Maybe it happens, but he's not a player where if you lose him, the middle of your defense is in shambles, right? Like, you can replace him fairly easily, cheaper, and get 90% of the production without much effort.
Right. Spags, I'm with you in that my gut is that Hightower probably retires after the year. I think him and McCourty and Slater might all retire together here. But there's not an outcome in this, in theory, that is an issue to me. If they brought both back, I don't think Hightower would be more than like a 1-year deal. If they re-signed Bentley and brought Hightower back on like a 1-year deal, or if they picked one or the other, or if both ended up leaving, whether it's retirement or leaving in free agency, I'm okay with all of that on the surface. If they give them both like massive contracts, I'm going to have complaints. If Bentley signs like a 1-year, $5 million deal and leaves, might be like, okay, why didn't you keep him around? But in theory, there's really no outcome here that I have an issue with, because, like you're saying, Keaton, it's a replaceable role in the offense, or in the defense, excuse me. Hightower, what he means to the team is probably more than what he provides at this point, and he still provides good production. So if he wants to come back, I'm bringing Hightower back over Bentley. You have Cam McGraw, you can draft another guy to continue that pipeline of when Hightower is ready to be done. But I don't think you have to pick, and I don't think it's the end of the world if you don't even get to pick.
And Spags called me a predictions guy the other day, so I'm going to roll with that. Jawan Bentley, a 5th-round pick, he's made like $2 million over 4 years. That's a guy who cashes in. Like, he's going to want to get that generational wealth. So I wouldn't be surprised if he signs a pretty nice contract with somebody.
And the Patriots aren't going to be cap strapped this offseason, but they're not going to have a ton of money. So they're going to make some choices. There's a lot of free agents. But that'll do for that. So let's get into the first real segment here. We're going to do some over-unders. So we're a little more than halfway through the season. We are going to take the paces of some, current Patriots players and, the team as a whole, and we're going to do just over-under. We're going to predict for the rest of the year. So the first one is Mac Jones passing yards, over-under 4,000. He currently has 2,333, which puts him on pace for 3,966. So just under. For each of these, we're going to go Spags, Keegan, and me. Spags, what do you think? Over or under?
I think over, simply because I think they're putting a little bit more on his plate each week, and you can see them starting to open, him taking more shots. Like the throw to Bourne, he probably doesn't make that throw 3 weeks ago. Mm-hmm. I know he only threw for 198 yards, but I mean, that's what happens when you're playing from ahead the entire game. So I'm going to go over. I think if he's on pace for just under 4,000 for the start that he had when, the first couple weeks they really weren't opening things up and having him take shots, I think you go over there, and he starts to have, he might have a couple 300-yard games down the stretch. I know he's had one versus the Jets. He might have, 2 or 3 with their schedule coming up.
Keegan?
I'm going to say under by like a razor thin margin. I think whatever he's on pace for, like you said, 39 something, I think that's probably where he falls, because you saw last week with this whole 6 offensive lineman situation that they've got, where I think they really like having all of those guys on the field. I think they're going to run the ball a ton down the stretch,
And
like
that's
way
why I'm
more
putting
than
under
anybody
as well.
would expect.
Yeah. Ramondre Stevenson's really coming online here. Damian Harris will be back. I think they've found a rhythm in the run game as much as they found a rhythm in the pass game. And I think just given the talent that they have at each, the run game is a little more sustainable, especially as we get into better defenses and colder weather. So I'm going to go under here, which is not a knock on Mac. I just don't think he'll have the opportunity to. I think they're going to try and run the crap out of the ball. Which leads us to the second one. Damian Harris over under 1,000 rushing yards. He currently has 547, which puts him on a season-long pace of 930, but he missed a game in there. So if you take his game play, if he played every game, he'd be on pace for 1,033. So he's really kind of right on the edge here. So Spags, you going over or under here?
I'm going to go under simply because I think the last few weeks, Ramondre Stevenson's really come along. I think, and that's no knack on Harris. I think he's an elite back for them, especially his role. But I think you might see, especially if they think they're going to be playing in January, which I think they should. I think you're going to need both of them down the stretch. You don't want to kind of overrun Harris. He's a guy who has been really good when he's on the field, but his problem so far has been, being able to stay healthy. And he plays running back. He's a tough runner, runs between the tackles a lot, runs hard. That's going to happen. So I think under. I think he'll come close, maybe 850, 900. But I think with Ramondre Stevenson coming all along the last few weeks, I think he's earned a bigger role. You might see more of a 60-40 split, whereas before it was more 75-25.
Keegan?
I'm going to say over. I think there's a chance he has a really big game that kind of pushes him on pace to pass it. And I know it's not a Patriots thing, but, maybe late in the season, heading into the last game, he's got, 110 yards to get to 1,000. Maybe they try to get it for him. They give him a ton of carries, something like that. So I'll just say over.
I'm really on the fence here. I'm going to go under just because they still have to play Tennessee and Buffalo twice, and those are some tough run defenses. Ramondre has been great, and he should continue to have a bigger role in the offense, but I think where he still needs to improve is his power running. I think between the tackles and reading blocks, manipulating defenders, and kind of decisively getting upfield off of a power run, he still isn't there, and Damian is clearly their best guy. And where that's primarily how they run the ball, I think Damian still can get the bulk of the carries. The last game before when they both got injured, obviously he wasn't super productive. He only had like 30 yards, but he had, I think, as many carries as Stevenson and Bolden did combined before the injuries. And I think that's still what we're going to end up seeing, where he'll come off on passing downs, but when they want to run it, it's going to be to him first. So I'm going to go under just because I think the defenses they play are just good enough to keep him off. But this one, I think, is the closest. In my opinion, I think he might be in like the 950s even. Number 3 here, we're going to go Kendrick Bourne over under 900 receiving yards. I really wanted to say 1,000 for this, but his pace is a little too low to push it there. His current pace is for 884. He has 520 yards on the season with 7 games to play. Spags?
I'm going to go over. I think it's tough to predict wide receivers, especially because I think offensively, in terms of their skill position guys, it's hard to predict each week. Simply because I think it's matchup based and the ball gets spread around pretty nicely. But I think the last few weeks, like Stevenson, he's certainly earned a role going forward. As great as Jacoby Myers has been, I think Kendrick Bourne's your number 1 receiver. I think that's a guy who is really good after the catch. You can use him, and you saw him take some jet sweeps. They're really trying to get the ball in his hand quickly and make him make plays after the catch. So I'm going to say over. I think his target share has gone up each week, and it's certainly deserving. I think he's formed into a nice little player. And Ryan, I want to pull up. Last year when we were talking about the cap space in the. I think it was after the Monday night loss to Buffalo with what they were doing offensively and what who they'd target, and we're like, oh, I love Corey, not even like,
Right.
maybe not Corey Davis, but one of those top end where like, we'll end up with a Kendrick Bourne. And
Right.
like, it wasn't really a knock on him. I always thought he'd fit here
Yep.
like really well. I think that's just a guy who very precise route runner, somebody who can make plays. You can use him kind of play inside, outside. He's fit in nicely. I think he's their number one receiver.
Yep. Love Kendrick Bourne. Keegan, where are you at?
I'm over too. I think you're going to start to see later in the season, like Nelson Aguilar just doesn't really fit. Like what he does well, it just doesn't fit, and it's kind of been like I wouldn't say a waste, but it's like
it was a waste. I'll say it.
Yeah, you can say it.
I don't need to. I like Nelson. Nelson Aguilar's been a great run blocker, by the way. He provides value to
They're all very good at it.
Yeah. He provides value to the offense. So I'm not saying take him off the field, but I would, if I could go back and stop the signing, I'd do it. I'm fine with it.
Yeah. So I think you're going to see him start to take that. They're going to put him in the role where deep shots. And what I was getting at earlier, Aguilar's like a sideline guy. Everything that you've seen this year has been, outside of the numbers. Kendrick Bourne's a very similar player, but everything's inside the numbers, where it's a lot of like deeper routes or comeback stuff like that, where he's pushing the defense a little bit. So if you start to go to him a little bit more, maybe he'll get a few of these long catches. Maybe he'll break another 70-yarder. Who knows?
I'm going to go over here. If it was 1,000, I was going to go over just because it's the brand. But realistically, I think 900 is really close. I don't think he gets to 1,000, but he's your best offensive player, offensive weapon. He should be seeing the bulk of the targets moving forward. Love Jacoby. Happy he got his first touchdown. Like you said, Specs. Kendrick Bourne's just a better receiver. He can do more for your offense. I think he's a more talented receiver in general. I've been pushing it all year that he should continue to see more targets, be the focal point of the passing game.
And this isn't me saying that there are any unlikable guys on the offense, but that guy's so likable. Yeah. Like he's so cool. He's so fun. The thing where he was like, "We're all pieces to the puzzle." That shit works to the wide receivers. That's awesome.
Yeah. Did you see? This isn't Kendrick Bourne really, but did you see today the Pats Twitter account posted the like player superlatives that they've been doing with Jacoby Myers, and it was the first three. It was like humble, prepared, and
smart,
passionate, smart, something like that. And he was just like James White. I miss James White. So shout out James White. All right, next one. Hunter Henry. Chat stepping on my toes with these next couple, actually. Hunter Henry, over under 12.5 receiving yards. So he has 7 on the season, which puts him on a pace for 12. Spags, where are we going here?
That's tough. I mean, that's a lot of touchdowns. 13.
That's a lot. 13 is a great season.
But at the same time, like he said, 7 in his last 7 games. I'm going to say under just because I think teams are starting to, like I said to my earlier point, like they're going to start honing in on him in the red zone and try to come up with ways to limit him. And like I said, I know he's a mismatch and it's really hard to defend him. And that might open up some plays for Jonnu, right? Or Bourne or Myers for him to get some more touchdowns. Yep. But I'm going to say under just because 13 touchdowns is like that's so a very, very good year. And I wouldn't be surprised if he goes over, but because of the pace he's been on. Mm-hmm. But I just think down the stretch when these games become a little bit more meaningful, you face Vrabel, Buffalo twice, teams like that can, coach really well and try to take away the things that you do best. You might have some tougher times down there where he's had some success so far.
Keegan?
Yeah, I've got the under. I think 13 is a ridiculous number.
So high. It's so
I think he ends up with like 9 or 10. I think we're going to see a lot of weird touchdowns, a lot of rushing touchdowns because that's just who they are in the red zone, but a lot of weird stuff. Maybe a lineman gets one. I think Jonnu breaks a couple, stuff like that. I don't think he can keep up this pace.
I want to throw on there, you mentioned some of the defenses. Indianapolis doesn't have a good defense, and I won't say that I know how they've handled tight ends this year, but the talent on their defense is mostly in the linebacker room too. So you've got 4, in theory, tough tight end matchups for Henry coming up here. So I'm also going under. I think that the counterplay you're talking about, Spags, where teams might focus on Henry, I think a 2-1 here, a counter off of that, and a way to get Jonnu more involved in the offense is to get him some manufactured red zone touches, whether it's the same similar stuff you're giving to Henry, or you're even giving him the ball like on a handoff or a sweep in the red zone. I think that could be a creative way to get some production for him and get him moving in this offense again, outside of the scripted plays that we see on the first drive of every game and then disappears. So I'm going to go under here just because, like you guys said, 13 is so high. That's an incredible year, and he's had to go pretty much a touchdown a game just to even get to this pace. So
that's like prime Antonio Gates numbers.
Yeah,
it's
right.
just not happening.
Right. All right. Next one. Someone in the chat, inwards, Oliver here, really stepped on my feet here, saying it should have been over under 2 passing touchdowns for Bourne. Next one is over under 1.5 passing touchdowns by a non-quarterback. We have one this year, the Kendrick Bourne one. So I mean, it's not a pace. Do you think that a non-quarterback is going to throw another touchdown this year?
Yes, Jacoby Myers will have one, no doubt.
They do it too often to not say yes.
Like you said, it's not a trick play anymore. It's just a part of their offense.
Double passes are just league wide. Really, they're not trick plays anymore. They should start being just scripted plays. Like double passes are a next progression in offense, in my opinion.
I don't know if you guys remember. It was probably like 2 or 3 years ago, but they ran this weird, like fake dive flip to James White, and he tried to throw it, and he got like clobbered. You know, I think they're going to run that play again with Damian Harrison. It's going to work.
Mm-hmm.
That's my take on that one.
And then last one here, and then we'll get on to our next segment. Over under 3.5 defense and special teams touchdowns. We're at 2 for the year, so they'd need 2 more going out here to get there.
Over. Gunner will run one back, and they'll have another pick six. They're picking him up. They almost had another one for their third straight game. Duggar was 5 yards away, so over because Gunner will get one, and they'll find a way to get another one.
Over. We haven't gotten the kick block yet either.
Yep.
So we got to get one of those in.
I'm going over as well, and I think one comes tomorrow night. I think they're going to get a defense or special teams touchdown tomorrow night against Atlanta. That feels like a exact type of team type of team that they would do it against. All right, so that'll do it for that segment, and we'll get into our last one here, which are going to be schedule predictions. So the big talk this week has been, Pats. You wrote it, Spags. Pats are dark horse contenders in the AFC. It's been talking on, ESPN's been all over it. It's been a lot of talk off this 4-game win streak. So I kind of want to get a sense of where we really think this team's ceiling is. So I'm gonna go game by game and just give me win or loss, and I'll tally the records. And then I want to talk a little bit afterwards about where we see this team potentially going. So same order, we'll go Spags, Keagan, me. So Atlanta tomorrow night. Don't give a score because that's what we'll do going out, but give me win or loss here.
Win.
And I'm going to go win as well. So we've got. I'm going to take our collective. So whatever gets the majority is what we'll go here. So we've got a win here. Tennessee.
Win. 10 days to prepare. No Henry. Win. At home.
Win.
I'm so on the fence of this one. So I'm literally going to abstain because it doesn't matter because you guys already decided here. At Buffalo.
Loss.
Yeah. I have a hard. We'll get to the next one, and then I have a hard time seeing them beat Buffalo this year. And then we got a bye, and then at Indianapolis.
Bill Belichick would be pissed at you at this segment, by the way.
I know.
Can't look ahead. I'm kidding. Who's next?
At Indianapolis after the bye.
I'm gonna say win just because they're coming off a bye, but I know you don't like trap games, Keegan, but that's a tougher game than you think.
Loss. I don't think it's a trap game. I just think that's one of those games, that they drop one at the end of the year every year. I think that's the one.
I'm going win. Indianapolis just does not scare me. I don't think they're a very good team. Carson Wentz will never scare me. Buffalo at home.
Win. Tough, but I think they find a way to split with them this year. They were close last year. I think they win that game.
Win.
Wow. All right. So I was going to say this is the key to the division here. You need to split with Buffalo if you want to have a shot at it. I would go loss. I don't think that they beat Buffalo. I think Buffalo is still a tier above them. I think that their defense is going to – Sean McDermott, in my opinion, is like a top 2 to 3 coach in football. I think that he's the type of coach that rookie quarterbacks just aren't going to beat very often. So I would go loss, but the majority says win. So we're at 4-1 here. 2 weeks left, and I think we should have a strong finish here then. Jacksonville.
That's a win.
Yeah.
No question.
Yeah. And then at Miami to finish the year.
That's a win, but they have trouble down there, and they always I know Miami's a much different team than they were week 1.
Yeah, Dolphins are going to start playing better here. They're 3-7 right now. They got an easy. I think they're going to get close to 500 by this.
Yeah,
by this game.
If they're locked up a playoff spot, I'll say loss, but we'll go win for the sake of it.
I'm going to say win. I think they smashed Miami this year.
If they beat Miami week
not
1,
for nothing. Yeah.
Good. Yeah.
this team, everyone draws it to 2001. Like if you remember that 01 team, they were what, 6-5 or 5-5, and they went on to win. Like this team has that type of vibe to them where they could rattle off, win the next, what do they got? 8 games left, 7 of 8, like something like that. Like I could see that happening. And I don't want to be a homer or anything. I just think they have some favorable matchups. At the Tennessee and the 2 against Buffalo are the 2 toughest ones, but 2 of those games are at home. They're playing much better there. It's not crazy to think they go 2-3 over those. They win 2 out of 3.
Right. So at Miami, I would go win. If they beat Miami as they should week 1, I might say loss here, but they split with Miami every year, it feels like, and I don't think that they're going to allow Miami to sweep them this year. So we ended up I didn't expect this to be honest, but we ended up having them go 6-1, and they are at 6-4 right now. So that's a 12-5 season, which puts them firmly in the mix for the division.
It's a little crazy, but
probably
they're playing better, man. Like
I said 11-6 before the year. I'm still very confident in that.
The AFC stinks. 12-5 might put you in position for a 1 seed. Like you might be playing for the 1 seed at that type of record. Probably not, but
that's crazy.
Yeah,
we look ridiculous.
That's the type of right. That's the type you're looking at, like 5 seed if you don't win the division, or like a couple home playoff games.
I had them 10-7. Their win total at the beginning of the year is 9.5. I thought that was kind of right where they'd be. I think they, like you said, Keegan, they're probably 11-6. They might lose to Buffalo twice. They might lose to Tennessee. I think the Indy game could be a little scary, as up and down as they've been. So, not to kind of bring us back down to earth. I think 10-7, 11-6 is probably where they end up. And they got an 83% chance to make the playoffs. They'll be playing in January if they continue to do this, even if they drop a few down the stretch.
I think with Cam Newton, I said, they have a chance at like 9-10 wins. When Mac came in, I said 8-9, just give that rookie drop. No, again, nothing against Mac. I was in on Mac by the end of the preseason, but I still think 9 is a realistic outcome. I would say I'd probably update mine to about 10-7. I think 10-7 is a good number. So I want to talk about now. We have them at 12-5. Realistically, we probably feel a little bit lower. Our majority rules here kind of brought us a little higher than our, sum greater than the parts. What do you see as the ceiling for this team? Keegan, I'm going to start with you because Spags already wrote about it this week. Dark horse contenders. Do you see this team making a run? Do you see what's the ceiling here?
Ceiling in terms of record, or like where they end up in the playoffs?
Playoffs,
yeah.
For?
Do you think do you think they're a playoff team? If you think they're a playoff team, how far do you think they can go?
I definitely think they're a playoff team. Like I think they could struggle down the stretch and still squeak into the playoffs because you said like the AFC stinks. Terrible conference. But
I'm gonna pause this real quick because I'm gonna pull this in so Spags can't yell at me. Keegan, if you had the opportunity to redraft, do you choose Mac or Fields?
Ooh,
I'll be the bad guy first. I still choose Fields.
Yeah, you know what? I'll say Mac because I feel like Josh McDaniels, as much shit as I give Josh McDaniels, like I'm firmly just very rude to him on a daily basis. I think he's much more comfortable and works better with a guy like Jones, who's similar to the guy he worked with for 20 years.
That's fair.
You know what I'm saying? But if I was starting a team, like I take Fields every time. But that's just me.
But all right. Let's get back to.
I'm extremely biased. I'll admit.
Tough time to come back to that decision. I was a Fields guy too. I'm not.
Yeah. After 1 year, Max floor and ceiling is substantially higher than I thought it would be. But Fields was like a borderline, generational guy to me, and I'm not coming off of that just because Matt Nagy is trying to destroy him immediately.
Yeah, I mean, you can't judge him.
It's nothing
in
against
Chicago with
Nagy.
You can't.
And it's nothing against Mac Jones. It's just how high I was on Fields.
From when it came, like looking back at draft night, like this was the best. Like I thought Ryan Clark said it really well. Like I would have took him just so he didn't go to New England. Talking about Mac, like this was. If you talk about the realistic quarterbacks that they had, sitting at 15 that they could have had a chance or maybe trade up 5 spots. Like, I just think for Mac Jones and for the Patriots, it made a lot of sense, and it's showing now.
I just think with the
rookie of the year, he's rookie of the year. Get out of here with Jamar Chase. He's rookie of the year.
It's Jamar Chase.
I think it's.
If they didn't give it to Justin Jefferson last year, they're not giving it to Jamar Chase this year.
Listen, they can give it to whoever they want to give it to. That's wrong.
If Jamar Chase falls off here, Mac is second, and Mac could overtake it. But we talked about it last time Keegan was on. I still think it's Jamar Chase. Anyway, Justin Fields, you look at the athleticism and the arm talent, and he's starting to. Past couple of weeks, he's played really well. I think that ceiling is still like just astronomical there.
His
I
ceiling.
still have,
His ceiling to me is Deshaun Watson.
I think better ceiling.
So,
I think that there's, in terms of like raw talent, it's like Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, Patrick Mahomes, maybe Lamar Jackson are like the ceilings that I think would be higher than his right now.
Okay.
Or like in there.
We got to get off this.
Yeah.
This
Anyway.
is going to go 12 hours
Yeah.
if we don't.
Anyway,
my
all
playoff.
right, back to playoff. You think they're a playoff team? What do you think they could do in the playoffs if they get?
Yeah. So before the year, I said I thought they were going to win the wild card game and lose in the divisional round. I'd probably stick with that, but like you said, ceiling. If we're going, what's the absolute most they can do? I think they can get to the AFC Championship
be
game.
Completely optimistic here.
Yeah, AFC Championship game. They're not getting to the Super Bowl. They will not. But AFC Championship game, on the road, they lose by a couple points to whoever.
Spags, come in here. If you don't say Super Bowl, I'm gonna be mad at you.
But, yeah, I mean, they could mess around and make it there. Like, I wouldn't be shocked. I would be shocked, but you know what I mean with how well they're playing. I think Keagan put it pretty well. Like, they'll win a playoff game. I think because if they get the division, I think they're a lock to win it because they'll be at home. But I think AFC Championship game is this team's ceiling. Yeah, I think I wouldn't count out the Chiefs for as bad as they've looked. They looked much better on both sides of the ball the other night. That team has they're kind of the Patriots now of old. Like you can never count them out no matter what the record is.
The season hasn't started yet.
Yeah, we talked about a couple weeks ago.
He'll figure it out.
They're still my Super Bowl pick right now. I will. They'll prove me wrong when they lose in the playoffs and not a second before. I will not count them out before that. I'm with you guys. Their ceiling is the AFC Championship game. I think realistically, I don't think the playoffs are a lock for this team yet. I'm not there yet. I think they should make the playoffs given where they're at in their schedule. But I don't think this is a team that is above dropping, at Atlanta, at Indy, and then losing all three of the tough games that we have left on the schedule. And then you end up at like 8-9, 9-8, and it's not quite good enough because everyone in the league is around that. You might lose a tiebreaker or something like that. I think they should make the playoffs. I think that they can win a playoff game or two. I'm not all the way bought in on this offense for this year yet. I think that they're still lacking top end talent. Mac Jones still a rookie. You see the better defenses, playoff atmosphere. It's not to say that you should expect rookie mistakes from him, but no one's gonna be out on him if some rookie mistakes pop up here, right? So I'm still not there with the offense, but I think the defense can carry them into a playoff game or two. And if the offense clicks, then you have the AFC Championship game you're looking at. But I don't think they could beat Kansas City or Buffalo. Probably not Baltimore in a playoff game.
I agree with those three teams, and I think one if not two of those teams are going to be in the AFC Championship game. So,
and then if Derrick Henry gets back for the playoffs, I'd throw Tennessee in that mix as well.
He might be back next week. Like, that guy's crazy. He's
right,
a freak.
Yeah.
Like, who knows?
All right, that's going to do it for our segments here, though. So we're going to get into it. It is time for trivia. Spags, you are 0-2 on the season. You're looking for your first win. Keagan, you are 3-1. You don't have a chance at the 1 seed here because Pat's still undefeated, but you can continue to lock in your 2 seed and be right there ready to take the crown if Pat drops a game.
Do I have more points than him? I think
you're tied. He set a record. He broke your record.
Oh, right. He broke my record.
2 weeks ago, Keagan set the record with 6 points in a single game, and then Pat came out last week against Brian and smashed it with 7. So it's a tough one. It's going to be interesting. And Spags, like I said before, to continue to hype you up a little bit,
I'm going for the upset this week.
You should have beaten Brian.
Buffalo.
I think you should have beaten Brian.
Yeah, that was a joke.
I don't think that your 0-2 record is indicative of your talent. You were on week 2, which is infamously the toughest questions that I've given on this show. So you didn't get a point out of that one, and I don't think anyone can fault you there. So I'm Team Spags. I'm not saying I'm picking Spags to win, but I'm Team Spags here. I'm pulling for him. So let's get
disrespect.
Yes, the disrespect for me. So
it's tough being the New England Patriots and having everybody root against you.
So for anyone who hasn't seen how trivia works yet, there's going to be 6 rounds, 2 questions per round. Each guy will get 1. If they get their question right, they get a point. If they get it wrong, their opponent can steal. They would get the point. After 6 rounds, whoever has the most questions right wins the game. If there's a tie, we have a tiebreaker question. Still haven't had to do that yet this year. Hoping that we can get there. The questions, there's 6 different categories. 3 of them, the odd number questions, all have to do with this matchup. So the first one will be Atlanta versus New England. Third one will be the Falcons. The fifth one will be the Patriots. The other three could be anything. So let's get into it. Spags, as the lower seed, I'm going to have you call heads or tails in the air in 3, 2, 1.
Heads.
It is heads. So would you like to go first or second?
We'll take the ball.
Take the ball. You want to go first? All right. So we're going to put 30 seconds. So they're going to have 30 seconds-ish. I'm not super strict with it to answer each question. Both of you make sure that you're in the private chat so that chat, you guys can play along, send in your answers. And then we will get into it. So question number 1, round 1, we have New England versus Atlanta. If there is any questions about stats, this would always just be in the history of this matchup. That's not the type of question that you're going to get tonight, though. So Spags, when I finish reading the question, you will have 30 seconds to answer. I hope you get this one. James White scored 3 of the 4 Patriots touchdowns in Super Bowl 51. Who scored the 4th?
Amendola.
Final answer?
Yes.
That is correct. It was Danny Amendola, and Spags is
right.
on the board early.
There we go.
You were making me
Yeah,
nervous there, sitting there for a minute.
No, I
the
was
two-point
like, I
conversion
remember
as well.
obviously the
Yeah, the
2-point
2-point,
conversion, and then I was like, no, he definitely caught a touchdown too because it was on the out.
He had to go ahead against Seattle too, right?
Yep.
Or was it the tying?
Tying.
And then
Edelman
had to go ahead. Yeah. And
He had the
Jacksonville.
game winner against Jacksonville.
Yeah. Shout out Danny Amendola. All right, Keegan, to keep pace here. 1-0 Spags after one half round, top of the first inning. Devontae Freeman and Tevin Coleman scored 2 of the Falcons' 3 offensive touchdowns in Super Bowl 51. Who scored the 3rd? I don't want to stress.
Austin Hooper?
Final answer?
Yeah, it's tight end.
Yeah, that is correct. And we
He's
have
a
a
rookie
1-1
then.
score. Everyone holding serves early. It was Austin Hooper. And then obviously Robert Alford had the pick 6.
Who was the other tight end that they had back then? It was another white guy. Doesn't matter. We don't have to think about it too much. But I was trying to think of him, and I was like, nah, it's Austin Hooper.
All right, round 2. Bruins is the category. Boston
All right, here we
Bruins. Keegan has 1 point.
All right.
Spags.
We're gonna have a Red Sox category after. What is this?
Hey,
Don't sleep on me.
Keegan, famously 4-sport guy. I figured this would be relatively.
I am.
easy. All right,
It true.
and these should be recent enough. We're going to be digging up some scars here. I'm just going to warn you guys now. During the Bruins 2018-2019 Cup run that ended with a Game 7 loss against St. Louis, 4 skaters on the Bruins were tied for the team lead with 9 playoff goals. 3 came from the top line, which is obviously Patrice Bergeron, Brad Marchand, David Pastrnak. Couldn't fit that's in the question. Who was the 4th? I have 30 seconds.
Charlie Coyle.
Final answer?
Yes.
Spags is 2 for 2 to start us off here.
I was gonna say Krejci, so well done.
Spags 2, Keegan 1. So Keegan, you're going to need this correct answer to hold serve again. Similar question for you. During the Bruins 2018-29 Cup run that ended with a Game 7 loss to St. Louis, 3 of the Bruins' top 4 in playoff points came from the top line, which again, Patrice Bergeron, Brad Marchand, David Pastrnak. Who was the 4th in points?
Krejci. He's an assist guy, right? David
Final
Krejci.
answer?
Final answer.
That is incorrect. Spags, you have about 10 seconds for the steal here.
Torrey Krug.
Final answer?
Yep.
Spags sweeping the
All right.
Bruins.
You see
The
how
hockey guy
fast he
showing
got
up.
those.
Hockey guy showing up here.
That's tough.
Is so Spags sweeps the category. We got a nice little 3-1 lead for Spags going in here.
I hope I have some cries for justice in the chat because this Bruins. Come on.
You see this Spags Keegan gets down. He's already the excuse maker.
We're gonna have
know what's coming up.
We're gonna have a Texas high school football one next time I'm on, just to even it out a little bit.
All right, round 3, we have the Falcons. So again, any players named, it's just their history with the Falcons. If they've played for other teams, disregard anything they've done for them. You'll have 30 seconds again to answer. Spags to take a 4-1 lead. Julio Jones is not the Falcons' career leader in touchdowns. Which former Falcons wide receiver does hold the record?
Roddy White.
Final answer?
Yes.
He's on a roll, folks. 4-1
Dang.
Spags.
Get
Keegan,
layups, Keegan. You should have won the toss, buddy.
You're going to need it. Keep pace here. Julio Jones is tied for 2nd for Falcons career touchdowns. Which former running back that was a teammate of Julio Jones is he tied with?
Work done's too old. Michael Turner.
Final answer.
He was like their final answer.
That was a huge pull. It was Michael Turner.
I was gonna go Devontae Freeman.
He
just
was
'cause
their only player for like
I
5
remember
years.
him. Yeah.
I'm glad you mentioned Warwick Dunn because that is exactly why I added the former teammate. I thought there was a little too many options without it. So I'm glad you mentioned
shout
it.
out to
Process
Secret
worked
Base. Their
Yep.
Atlanta Falcons documentary. I know
Hell
way
yeah.
too much Atlanta Falcons information because of
Hell
it.
yeah. All right, round 4. NFL record holders. Spags, you're up 4-2. If you get all your own questions right, you're going to win the game. There's nothing Keegan can do. You're going to need to get something wrong for him to get back to this game. First, Spags, who is the active, and my definition of active is he has played a game in 2021, leader in rushing yards.
Adrian Peterson.
Final answer?
Yes.
It is 5-2 Spags.
It's a layup line.
If you didn't say has played in 2021, I would have.
Frank
I would have
Gore.
got a
It
little.
would have been so.
I would have said
so
Gore probably, but well, he's not.
I'll give
Up into Williams.
I'll give my thought process there after I give Keegan this question. But Keegan, who is the active, has played in 2021, leader in receiving yards?
Would you give me Julio Jones? That's the question.
That is a question.
It's Falcons. God damn it. I can't think of anybody else that would be
10 seconds.
Julio. Final answer.
It's Julio Jones. I wasn't trying to trick you there. So the reason that I did this way is because both the current active leaders, according to PFREF, are not actively playing, and I didn't want this to end up turning into a trick question.
Who is it? It's Frank Gore and who?
Frank Gore and Larry Fitzgerald.
Oh,
So,
Fitz. Come on.
yeah. So I didn't want to turn into a trick question type of scenario here. So we got 5-3. Patriots round 5. So again, Spags, you get your question. There's nothing Keegan to do catch up, and he's going to be looking at the last round best case. You get this wrong, and he's doors back open. Spags, name this former Patriots wide receiver based on his career path: Carolina, New England, Cincinnati, Oakland. Keegan knows it. This is big. You can tell Keegan knows it. Spags has to pull it, otherwise the door's back open. Still got time. 10 seconds. 4.
I got nothing. I can't even think of
All
anyone.
right. All right.
Then I'm gonna-
Time is up. So Keegan,
Brandon LaFell. Final answer.
it is Brandon LaFell.
He was my guy. If the
Brandon
Oakland threw me
LaFell.
off,
Yeah.
I was looking at the Oakland too much. I forgot he ended up there.
I always
Brandon
forget about the
LaFell.
last one because you'll never remember because he left the Patriots and who knows,
Yeah.
Keegan, that was a huge steal. You're back in this game. You get your question right here, and it's a tie game going into the final round. And there hasn't been a wrong answer yet, by the way. No question has fallen to the floor. We've had 9 questions, 9 points. So keep the streak alive. Name this former Patriots running back based on his career path: Philadelphia, New England, Tennessee, New York Giants.
It's like the same guy, but it's Deion Lewis.
Final answer?
Yep.
It is Deion Lewis. We have a tie game, folks.
Baby
a
LaShawn
tie
McCoy
game.
right there.
And it's back. So you talk about that 1 year. These guys were perfect because they both had, short stint on their first team, came to New England, got their contract somewhere else, and then ended up on a team for 1 year before being out of the league. They matched up like perfectly here. We have a tie game, folks. We have a chance. I just realized your name is spelled wrong in this one, Keegan. We have a chance here to get some overtime. If you guys split this round, whether it's 1-1 or 0-0, we're going to overtime for the first time in the history of Pick Six Trivia competition. Spags, to put the pressure on Keegan, if you get this right, you win. Keegan can only force overtime. You get this wrong, Keegan has 2 chances in a row to win before you would get another chance to take the lead. So this is a big question here. The category is NFL MVP runner-ups, inspired by the fact that I realized this week that Chad Pennington came in second for the 2008 MVP, which is
I
just
saw that tweet.
tied
Wild.
with Michael Turner, by the way.
Did he win comeback? That was like the third time he won comeback.
That was
player
the
of year, right?
Dolphins year where Matt Castle was in. The Patriots needed
Wildcat.
Jets Brett Favre to beat the Dolphins final week of the year to make the playoffs, and they lost. So they became the best record ever to miss the playoffs. All right, Spags, to guarantee yourself at least overtime in your quest for your first win. In Cam Newton's 2015 MVP season, which NFC quarterback that Cam Newton beat in the playoffs tied with Tom Brady for second in voting? Does Keegan know it? Keegan has a face like he might know it.
Russell Wilson.
Final answer?
Yes.
That is incorrect. Keegan, don't say anything yet. So here's the deal. If Keegan gets the steal, he wins. If it's wrong, he gets another chance to win. Keegan, do you know it? 10 seconds.
All right. It's Carson Palmer. The Cardinals that wild year where they were really good. Final answer.
That is correct. And I know what you were going to say. This actually
Did
does
they
not end
beat
the
Seattle that year, though, in the playoffs? They did, right?
Yeah.
They beat
Divisional round.
Seattle, and then they beat
Because they were going for
Cardinals
3
in the
straight. That's what I
championship
thought.
game.
Yep.
Damn it.
And I am incorrect. That does not win the game for Keegan. It is now guaranteed Keegan at least overtime. The correct answer is Carson Palmer. So now Keegan has 6. Spags has 5. Keegan, you get this right, and now the game is over, and you will have tied Pat for highest scoring in a game. You get this wrong, and then Spags needs to steal, and overtime will be had. Keegan, for the win. During Patrick Mahomes' 2018 MVP season, which former Super Bowl champion NFC quarterback was the only other player who received a vote?
Russell Wilson. Final answer.
That is incorrect. Spags, 2 force overtime, 15 seconds. 10 seconds, excuse me.
Drew Brees.
Final answer?
Yes.
Folks, we're going to overtime. It was Drew Brees.
No
what
chance,
a pull!
Drew Brees.
What a pull!
Was that Michael Thomas's career year, or was it the year after? That's the only thing.
This was the year that the Patriots beat the Rams in the Super Bowl, and the
was the year
Saints
after.
lost in the controversial defensive
With
pass
Foles.
interference. Yeah.
Yep. Oh, no,
Um,
to the Rams.
No,
You're right.
yes,
Yep.
the Rams. That was initially part of this question. I thought it made it a little too easy. They lost controversially in the playoffs.
I wasn't
Brees.
going Wilson after that last one.
So we're now in a tiebreaker. We haven't had the tiebreaker yet, folks. This is the first tie. Every single question has been answered correctly. Every single question has been answered correctly.
Did I set a record at least? Like, am I tied?
Whoever wins this is going to tie Pat for the record. Whoever wins is going to have 7. We're guaranteed. And 6 will be the most in a loss. So either way, a record's being set here by both of you. Wilson has never received an MVP vote. That was my thought going through when both of you said it.
Really?
Yep. Never even gotten
I
a
thought
vote.
it was a first place vote. I saw that, but I thought it was a first place one.
So NFL only votes for first place. They don't do like
they
first,
do?
second,
Okay.
third. Yeah.
I thought
So-
it was like
So if
MLB.
you got a vote, that someone voted you for MVP, which is why a lot of the times it's like the Carson Palmer one, or the Cam Newton one, for example. Brady and Palmer each had 1 vote, and Cam Newton got like 48. And then I think in the Mahomes one, I think he had 46, and Drew Brees got like 4. All right. So here's how the tiebreaker works. We have 1 question, and you are both going to answer it. It's going to be a question where I'm asking for a number, and you guys are going to give me your best guess. Whoever is closer to it, which means you might need to stand by while I get a calculator out. Whoever's closer to it gets the win.
Can we go over?
Yeah, it's not Price is Right rules. It's just closest. So if one of you is, I'm asking for something like touchdowns. If one of you is 3 over and one of you is 5 under, the 3 over wins it. So what I'm going to have you guys do is, do you have like a piece of paper or anything next to you?
Yeah.
Okay. I want you to write it down. I want you to write down your number, and then I'm going to have you guys hold it up when it's ready. I'm going to give you guys about 15 seconds to lock it in. So,
Let's do it.
for the win, the first ever overtime. How many career receiving yards did Wes Welker have with the Patriots? I'm going to give you guys a full 30 seconds. That's what we've been doing. You'll have 30 seconds, and then I'm going to ask you guys to hold up your numbers. You have about 5 seconds. Both of you guys got it written down? Locked in. All right. I'm going to have you both hold it up. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to read it, but just hold it up either way. We'll see how this goes. 8,000, 7,083. Okay. I'm going to have to do some math here.
Shout out
Just went
83.
I went for the over under rule. Obviously it's not 8,000 on the dot, but
I think I know who won, but I'm just gonna do the math just to be safe. Keagan,
Deion
can you hold
Branch.
yours up again?
Deion Branch, Wes Welker, great Patriots number. Does anybody wear 83 now? No, right?
Okay,
Matt
so
Lacoste,
here is the spread.
half point for me.
The losing number was 541 yards off, and the winning number was 380. I lost the number already. About 380 yards off.
We were both close.
You guys were close. Wes Welker had 7,459 yards in his Patriots career. Keagan, you come away with the win. A heartbreaker for Spags. That was great guesses.
Good battle.
You guys
battle.
were in the right range. That's a tough one where you
That's
could be
the best
like,
game.
You could be like 1,500 yards off there, easy. That was absolutely the best game. No wrong answers. You guys swept every category. Keagan 7, Spags 6. Keagan, after having his record broken, comes right back and ties the record. You move to 4-1 on the season. Spags, you follow 0-3, but you're right. I think you might have more points on the season than Brian, who has played more games than you and has a win. So
I had like 5 last time, I think.
Yeah. This isn't a
joke.
This isn't something to sneeze at. This is tough. These are tough losses for Spags. This is a fat, feisty 0-3 team. This is the early season Detroit Lions. Keagan, how's it feel?
Good. That last one was tough because I couldn't remember how many years he played in New England. I was like 5 or 6, so I went 6 and I added 1,000 and then his number. So
that was is Night Train Pat?
That's Pat.
Oh, okay, all right, that makes sense. Night Train Lane. There we go. All right, I didn't put it together. Hi, Pat. Appreciate you hanging out with us. That was incredible. That was a great matchup. Spags, you're 0-3, but again, like we're saying, you put up 5 and you put up 6.
You respect me. My opponents respect me. That's
right.
Absolutely. There's no laughter going on here. Like there might have been after that first game that you had.
Yeah. Well, you threw geography at me.
I threw geography. I threw some history in there. I think it was a tough one. Spagnoli will come again as Dark Blue.
Yes, he will.
All right.
I will say this, Oliver. What the hell, man? What's your deal with me? Every time I play somebody, you root for them.
No, I appreciate it. Keep it coming.
Let me see if anyone in the chat would have beaten you guys. I don't think so. I saw a couple. Yeah, Oliver was higher than Spags was. Pat was significantly lower than Keagan was. There was, and those were the only guesses we had. Keagan, and to Keagan's credit, that was a good comeback. Spags was up, I think 4-1, 5-1. Had a chance to make it 5-1. Gets the question wrong and ends up tied there.
Those Bruins one kicked my ass, man. I wouldn't have gotten either.
That was very impressive. That was very impressive, Spags.
And they were like off the top of the
dome. Typically, the questions I ask, I either know or I have a good idea of. And I had a decent idea of Charlie Coyle for the goals one. I had no clue for Torrey.
Yeah, I knew it was Coyle because he got that contract after, and then Krug because he's a power play guy. Like he plays the top line. It's like McAvoy this year. He's going to be 4 points because he plays in the top.
So for Desor here,
should have got JoJo LaFell. That's my guy.
He never played a regular season game for them. That's the definition here. Similar with like practice squad. If you didn't play a regular season game, you didn't tell.
Same exact person as LaShawn McCoy in terms of their like lives.
Yeah.
Pitt, Philly, like same guy. That's how I remember him, Philly.
Yeah. Deion Lewis was like my dude at coming out of Pitt. Like I was all in on him. And then he went away and then showed up in 2015 with the Patriots. And I was so excited.
His knees exploded his senior year, right? Like
I was always in on Deion Lewis. As soon as I realized that he was on the pitch, I vividly remember that was my first year after my freshman year of college. So I was a little bit tuned out of the Patriots that year. And I remember it was like preseason week 3, realizing he was on the team. And I was like, oh, he's making the roster. Like that's a stud. He's a stud. That'll do it for us though. We're going to get out of here. So the game's tomorrow night. We've all already predicted a win, but I want to get a score. So Spags, give me a score here.
I think I said 34-10 on Monday. I'm going to go with that. They'll blow them out. They're rolling.
Keagan?
29-9.
I'm going to go, I think the first half might be a little scary here, and then they pull away. I'm going to go 27-17. And that'll do it. I don't know who's going to be on next week yet. I got to figure it out, but we'll get that in there. We'll get at least one of the core 4 here on the show again as we're pulling up on playoff time. I think after the bye week, we're going to start the tournament here. So it's going to be a tough one. It's coming up quick, excuse me. It's going to be tough for seeding. So we're going to try to get the 4 of you guys on as much as possible here moving forward. Thank you guys for hanging out. We'll be back next week, next Wednesday with, again, guests to be determined. Go Patriots.